afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special Way Forward Workshop Leader Lunch Break to kick off the year of 2022. It's great to see your faces, and Council President Griffin, you sure draw a crowd.
Thank you.
We're very pleased to welcome him. Council President Blaine Griffin was sworn in on Monday night at the convening of the 134th session of City Council. And when he was sworn in, he announced that his top priority is taking care of Clevelanders. Those who know President Griffin appreciate that taking care of Clevelanders has always been his passion, his purpose, and one he has pursued with an unwavering sense of urgency. When he was first unanimously voted by his colleagues to assume this new mantle of leadership in November, he spoke of the need for substantive change and transparency, acknowledging that excuses are the tools of the incompetent. President Griffin has been at the forefront of the battle to eradicate lead, declaration of racism as a public health crisis, and the elimination of the digital divide, as well as disparities in education. He served almost 12 years as executive director of the Community Relations Board, became a Ward 6 city councilman in 2017, but has been a lifelong community activist and organizer. If you're familiar with his Twitter account, he says that he was raised and forged in Northeast Ohio, proclaims family first, yes, his family, but now it's all the families of Cleveland. He served as vice chair of the Democratic Party. He's a proud graduate of the Leadership Cleveland class of 2014, and we are proud to have him serving on the Cleveland Leadership Center board. Welcome, Council President Griffin.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann Crosley. For a minute there, I had to pinch myself and say, who is she talking about? But thank you so much, Mary Ann, one of my favorite people. And thank you for allowing me to be here for your lunch series today. Leadership Cleveland is one of my favorite organizations in the city of Cleveland. And it's always an honor and a privilege to come and be a part of these sessions because, as Mary Ann always says, is leaders show up. And I always tell everybody that my best ability is my availability. So thank you so much for having me here today. I'll get right into my topics and what I believe is very important for us to have a discussion about today. But before I go any further, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody's in blessings and health, wealth, and prosperity. I want to start off by just saying that when I spoke the other evening, I really meant what I said. One of the things I learned from my friend and mentor, I would even dare to call him a teacher, former boss, mayor of the city, Frank G. Jackson, is take care of people. That's the one thing that we always believed in, is how do you take care of people? So the center of what I would like to do and talk about today is how we're going to make sure we take care of the people of Cleveland and why it's so important that we put people at the center of what we're trying to do. I regret that we couldn't be in person. One day we'll get through with this COVID, but right now I know that it's important. Just to tell you a couple of things about me, just so that you know, I have been a councilperson in Ward 6, and we've done a lot of great things in Ward 6 dealing with affordable and market rate housing. We've done a lot around food insecurity and created a lot of grocery stores. We've done a lot of investments in long neglected neighborhoods and abandoned areas of the city of Cleveland that's been left behind. We repaired roads and infrastructure. We made investments in smart technology to deal with crime, things like gun sensor technology and other things like that nature. We've developed unprecedented public, private, and philanthropic partnerships that have led to home repair, broadband access, and a pipeline to the workforce. And we've always tried to take care of people, but we still have work to do in Ward 6. So I'm grateful to Ward 6, and I always start with Ward 6 because now I get a great opportunity to take this platform to a citywide level and work closely with Mayor Bibb in order to try to get to the next level. I want to tell everybody that You know, council is an independent voice, an independent body, and we're really going to focus on that in this upcoming 4 years, that we are going to be an independent voice and a forceful voice for people in the city of Cleveland. There at times will be a healthy tension, and notice I said a healthy tension, not a toxic relationship, but a healthy tension between the mayor and the council because iron sharpens iron. So if you see things in the newspaper and on social media, don't believe the hype. We have a great working relationship. I look forward to working with Mayor-elect Mayor Bibb now in order to try to accomplish all of the goals and objectives in the city of Cleveland. I said in my message the other day that in Cleveland, we have to be first, be the best, and be different. The reason that I said that is because I think that's going to be the key to taking care of people in this city. The gravity of this moment does not escape me. I would tell everybody that all of us as city council, and I would tend to say all of you and all of us in the city of Cleveland are tired of being on the list of worst. We're tired of being on the high list of high infant mortality, being on the list of being one of the communities that are affected most by lead exposure, having a low life expectancy. In one of the areas that I represent, the Woodland Hills part of Cleveland, we have the lowest life expectancy in all of Cleveland. In some instances, it's almost 20 years less than some of our affluent suburban neighborhoods. When you compare Lyndhurst life expectancy to the life expectancy in Woodland Hills, similar demographics other than the affluent nature, but in population dynamics, it's approximately about 20,000, 15 to 20,000 in Lyndhurst, and it's about 15,000 people in Woodland Hills. However, the people that live in Woodland Hills have almost a 20-year lower life expectancy than the people in Lyndhurst. Those are the kind of trajectories that we have to change. It's been the worst place for women, which is totally unacceptable. It's been low educational attainment, crushing poverty. We're tired of hearing about we're the poorest big city in America or close to it. And then we also have a widening gap between the rich and poor in two Clevelands, what I call a Dickensian model of a city, where we have the best of times and the worst of times, as Charles Dickens said in his Tale of Two Cities. We have cities or parts of the city and region that are doing great, but then we also have areas of this city and region that are not doing well and that have experienced abandonment and disinvestment for too long. And then people say that Cleveland is not a good place to do business. We got to change some of those trajectories. They say that we don't have the talent here in order to fill critical jobs. We have too much blight and decay. Then we have an unequal criminal justice system that needs to be reformed from top to bottom. And let me say this, it's not just about police. It's just as much about bail reform and sentencing disparities and making sure that we have top to bottom reform of the criminal justice system and not just reform one or the other. That's almost like saying you're going to repair one part of your body, but let the other parts be neglected. We got to be able to retool everything. And then let's not forget, as we declared last year, that racism is a public health crisis in the city of Cleveland, and we don't intend for those to be empty promises, as you'll hear in a moment, of some of the ways that we want to address that. But most of all, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get over, we have to get over the soft bigotry of low expectations in the city of Cleveland. And we got to start believing in our city and believing in our people power and believing in our assets and start speaking life. I know that this job, and I know that you read the newspapers and see the news with the tragic incident like we've seen with Officer Shane Bartek, and it can make you angry. And this job can make you angry. And you really have to really stay centered in order to be able to do this job, because at times it can become taxing when you're watching the misery index every day. And we're tired, as I said, of being last, of being the worst, and being status quo. So my challenge to Cleveland, my challenge to you, my challenge to everyone is that once again, we have to be first, we have to be best, and we have to be different. Let me tell you what I mean when I say that we have to be first. to start off with. We have a rare opportunity to make some big bets because of the ARPA dollars that we got. So we could be able to be a trendsetter in broadband infrastructure and technology. We have to do more to get a more diverse and well-trained police force. So even though the voters of the city of Cleveland passed issue 24, which dealt with police reform, we know we've had consent decree, we also need to make sure that we deal with the morale and that we deal with the pay, and we deal with making sure that we have the technology and tools for the police department to be effective. If we don't have safety in our city, we'll lose our city. And I tend to think that even some of the marginally involved criminal activity that we see in the city does not like the violent behavior and the pathological nature of what we're seeing in some of the violent crime that we're seeing in the city these days. We have to do more to create a cradle to the workforce pipeline that creates more opportunities in Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing. Cleveland is still 5th in the country in manufacturing. We have to do more to get IT jobs in construction. You have places like Cleveland Clinic that are going to have $400 billion in construction over the next 5 to 10 years. We have to be able to put people in those jobs so that we can be able to create wealth and help people understand that. And we also must be able to create, which is something you'll hear me talk about a lot, to make Cleveland a leader in water technology innovation. I'm looking out my window as we speak of this edifice that I belong in, that I'm in right now, and I see one of the best freshwater sources, and that's our oil. We represent 1/5 of the world's fresh water source, and we got to be more innovative in protecting our water resource and making sure that we are creative in creating an economy around water and making sure that we let everybody know that we're going to be a leader in water innovation technology. Number 2, we got to be the best. Long gone are the days of us trying to be mediocre. We need to be the best. We need to quit talking about how they do it in other cities. We need to start being able to tell people how we are going to do it in Cleveland. You're going to hear some very exciting things in the next couple of weeks through a public, private, and philanthropic partnership that we do to deal with lead, that we believe is going to put us as a national leader, to couple with the strong piece of historical legislation that we passed 2 years ago in order to make sure that we deal with lead and make Cleveland a lead-safe place for children. We have to make sure that we have more strategies to strengthen our housing stock. We have to make sure that we create more home ownership, which we know leads to wealth and is the easiest path to wealth for our community. We have to make sure that we have a laser-like focus on demolition and blight removal. And we must find ways to do more home repair. I'm all for attracting millennials and making sure that we bring in that age group from 25 to 35, because we know if we don't get them by 35, they're going to set up roots somewhere. So we need to make sure we capture that audience, but we also need to make sure that we take care of first, second, third, and fourth generation homeowners through home repair and other tools like that. I'm excited to see my good friend and brother, Dennis Roberts from the Cleveland Land Bank, Cuyahoga County Land Bank, who is always been a sage advocate and giving me sage advice along with Gus Frangos on how we can use some of those tools to strengthen our housing stock in the city of Cleveland. And ladies and gentlemen, we must find a way to strengthen the middle class in Cleveland. Right now, you're starting to see 2 Clevelands, a very affluent Cleveland and a very poor Cleveland. And what we need to do is make sure that we grow Cleveland from the middle out, not the top down, but the middle out. And that's one of the things that we're going to focus on, to take care of people in the city of Cleveland and be first, be the best, and be different. Last but not least, we got to be different. Change was on the ballot in November. Everybody's excited about the change, but change is not an event. Change is a process. Change is something as if we're trying to turn around a freighter in Lake Erie. It does not operate like a speedboat. It's going to have to operate like a freighter, but change is coming, and we are committed to change in this city. We will embrace new strategies and take care of people and be innovative. I'm so excited to be the council president because we got a lot of people that have institutional knowledge, but then we also have great new innovative ideas from some great young leaders across the spectrum that I get the privilege and honor of leading for this council. We're going to have to make sure that we have partnerships. And the number one thing that all of us are that we learned in Leadership Cleveland is to have a collaborative leadership model that should be the envy of everything that we see. You heard me say it before. I know how to do this. We need to make sure we have great public, private, and philanthropic partnerships if we're going to be successful. I know that, I want to make sure in closing, and then I'll take any questions that everybody has, that I think this is a great opportunity for Cleveland. And I think this is something that we can really cherish as a time for change. Some of the things that we're going to have as priorities is safety, to make sure that we have a diverse workforce that's well trained. Technology, tools like gun sensor technology, tools that make sure that we can try to have safer police chases that we've seen throughout the city, tools that we can have more camera and technology in order to be able to deal with that. So we got to embrace technology. We got to use drones and other type of technology in order to have a 21st century police department. And we must restore trust between the police and the community. I mentioned housing, which is going to be a priority. We know that housing instability is a problem in the city of Cleveland. The statistics that I've seen show that only approximately 20% of our city are homeowners, 80% renters. We have to change that kind of trajectory. I would tell you health disparities are critical. Infant mortality when Black women are losing babies at 4 times the rate of their white counterparts is a problem that we must address and that we must not be afraid to confront in this upcoming future. I mentioned the other thing that we have to deal with is poverty. We have to make sure that we change the trajectory on poverty. I believe that we have an opportunity to really invest in really working in helping to help create a cradle to workforce pipeline, which this council is going to embrace. How are we going to do that? The first step we made is through our committee structure. And our committee structure is going to change because now finance, the committee that I chair, must have anybody that comes before us. Please tell all your friends and partners that it must have a component that shows a community benefit for the community and that we have a great diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. Whether it's a stadium deal or whether it's a community project, it must be embedded in the finance committee, which all legislation goes through in the city of Cleveland. Number 2 is transportation. Transportation is more than cars. We have to make sure we have walkable neighborhoods, bikeable neighborhoods. We must make sure that we have a great waterfront. We must make sure that we have a great multimodal system of transportation. And of course, we're going to make sure that we take care of our regional asset is our airport. I tell everybody I'm a huge cowboy movie fan, and in every cowboy movie is 2 things that they tell you that you got to protect: your water source and your railroad. In this case, we got to protect our water source and our airport because those are 2 regional assets that this city of Cleveland has to make sure are well run and efficient. I would tell you that we also changed our workforce committee to add education and training. Our council and our community wanted an education committee. We do not have oversight of the Cleveland schools, but what we do is we have an opportunity to make sure that we can look at pre-adolescent all the way through workforce. And I dare to say what I call the gray tsunami, people that are even retiring, coming back into the city of Cleveland to make sure that we have opportunities for them to work and be a part of Cleveland's growth and opportunity as well. Last but not least, we have a great opportunity for broadband, and I look forward to our utilities committee taking up that issue. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, before I take any questions, I believe that this is our North Star moment. Anybody that understands our North Star moment, as once again, I look out of my window of this council president's office, we have a tremendous opportunity right now. It's the time for inspiration. It's a time for hope. It's a time for direction and a time for leadership. We want to give this city the service and leadership that it deserves. Ladies and gentlemen, all I can say is I ask for God's providence on my new assignment as I move forward. I really hope that we can all work together. I hope to see you in the grocery stores, in the neighborhoods, in the boardrooms, and in the streets, because this job is so important to me as we take care of people and be first, be the best, and be different. Thank you, and I look forward to taking any questions that you have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have had some questions start to come in. So we'll start. There's some interest in hearing some specific ideas about how you and council can make Cleveland a good place to do business.
Well, you ready for me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we take care of our technology. It is unheard of that you can't do permitting online. You should be able to get permits for businesses and other things that you're doing, demolitions, construction, or anything that we do at the city of Cleveland should have a technical format that we do, which means that we have to really improve our technology. We have to be business friendly. Now, we're government. Our job is to focus on bottom line. Our job is not to focus on profit. It's contrary to what people believe. We are not a business. Our job is not to operate like a business. But our job is to set the conditions and the atmosphere that people feel good about investing in the city of Cleveland. I see that my good friend Adam Fishman is on today, and we created an environment over on 105th and Cedar, that now we're going to be able to have a Meyer supermarket that is going to do what I call the triple bottom line of service, which is going to address a social impact, an economic impact, because it'll create jobs, social impact, because it actually will address a food desert. And then it will also address a environmental impact, because we're going to encourage everybody to buy local, as well as make sure that we have healthy food where people can walk to in order to get. So those are the kind of things that we have to do in order to make Cleveland more business friendly. The business community wants to understand if we have predictability. And one of the things about making sure we have predictability, which I want to attribute to my good friend Frank Jackson, the former mayor of the city, and I really look forward to working with the next mayor, Justin Bibb, is that we had financial stability. There was stability in Cleveland, so people felt good to invest in Cleveland. That's what we want to do to create the environments, deal with technology, make sure that we understand the business needs, and then last but not least, make sure that we increase our talent pool, because it's too long and I'm too tired of hearing about how we don't have the talent pool in order to fill critically needed jobs in our city. Those are things that we have to change, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to work my butt off to make it happen.
We have had quite a few questions come in around the ARPA funds. Can you explain a bit more about how you see the disbursement of those funds, a time frame, and any plans to include support participatory budgeting when allocating those funds?
Well, I tell you that we are, as council, we did pass the safety portion because when we did a survey and everybody said safety is the most important thing that we wanted to invest in. So we invested in a lot of technology around cameras and around tools, around equipment and cars. A lot of people don't know this, but many of the cars that our police officers were riding around in had almost 250,000 miles on them. Could you imagine your car having 250,000 miles on them? It's almost like a Flintstone vehicle where you have holes in the back seat and have to run down the street. So we had to really invest in our fleet, and we had to invest in those kind of things. I would tell you, we also had about $80 million that we're going to be talking with the Bibb administration. We wanted to wait until the new administration came in, that we want to look at in economic development, community development, housing stability, and all of those tools that we need in order to try to address stabilization of our blighted neighborhoods and neighborhoods that COVID revealed are being left behind. And those are tools that we're going to use. I will also tell you that we have to be responsible stewards of government. So we set aside $110 million to deal with loss fund recovery because we lost money for income taxes and other things that we had to fill that budget gap, and we use ARPA dollars for that. So in other words, we have about $80 million this round that we have to use from the last year's allocation, and we'll get about $255 million this year that we'll have a chance to allocate. All of the money has to be allocated by 2024, and it has to be spent by 2026. So we're on a very ambitious timeline. I heard you say about participatory budget. I've met with them. I'm open to the process. I do have some concerns because it is very hard, ladies and gentlemen, for me to get 17 members in the room to agree on how we distribute funds to make sure that they're equitably spent and everybody gets a piece, let alone if we open up a room for 300,000 people to come and say that we want to tell where the dollars need to go. And a lot of people elected us to lead. So I'm not saying that participatory dollars are off the table, participatory budgeting is off the table, but what I will say is that each council person has a process that they need to go through in order to make sure that their citizens have a voice in how we spend these dollars. And once again, I work closely with Mayor Bibb, and if we come up with a strategy that is fair and equitable process that doesn't leave anybody behind and doesn't go to the squeaky wheel getting the grease and an oversaturation of people giving an opinion on how the dollar should be spent in one neighborhood, and we have an equitable process, then I'll be for it. I think a great process that was used in the past is through neighborhood connections, which we had ambassadors throughout all of Cleveland that gave a voice to how dollars should be spent by the Cleveland Foundation approximately 20 years ago. If we use something like that as a model that's fair and equitable, then I'm all for it. But I do want to make sure that we think all those processes out.
How might you and the mayor work best with county council?
Well, you know, we got to understand that Cleveland doesn't live in a vacuum. We represent the region. We're the heartbeat of the city of Cleveland. I've already reached out to county council and several of my suburban colleagues. And actually yesterday, as we had council orientation, which I was fortunate enough that my colleagues let me step away from for a moment in order to do this, we actually had former Mayor Earl Liken from Shaker Heights. We had present Mayor Kirsten Holzheimer Gale from Euclid, and then we also had Mayor Mike Summers, because we're already talking about how we can collaborate regionally. But I see some other opportunities, and I want to be clear that I say this to county council, regional, or anybody else. If you're going to come and talk about Cleveland's assets, you're going to come and talk about our water, our airports, our downtown central business district, the West Side Market, and all of the great assets that we have in the city of Cleveland. You're also going to have to talk to us about how we collaborate on some of the generational problems that we have around education and safety and some of those issues as well. All of those are inextricably tied. We can't talk about one without the other. And I would tell you that we have some great opportunities. The first opportunity that I would like to talk with our county council about, and what I would like to talk to our regional elected officials about, is how we can have multi-jurisdictional chase policies, because I'm tired of watching too many chases go through multi-jurisdictional strategies, and everybody has different policies. And, you know, and sometimes it ends up in citizens getting hurt too often. So I think we have some good opportunities of how we can have some good multi-jurisdictional law enforcement policies, because also crime does not stop at the borders. So as I said yesterday, we had 3 mayors come and talk to our council, and we're already talking with county council about how we can work together. I also see some very good opportunities to work around broadband, because we know we have to build out broadband, and we can actually make broadband a utility if we work together with the county, but also the state and federal government.
I do want to be mindful of time, but want to ask, we have had quite a few questions come in, if you might have a few minutes to stay over?
Yes, please.
Wonderful.
Because it's Leadership Cleveland.
So next question. So last year, City Council declared racism as a public health crisis. Given all the issues that you mentioned earlier, can you give us an update on the progress that you've seen since making that declaration?
Well, I would tell you that we have a diligent group that's working between the Urban League, NAACP, YWCA, the United Way, and others that meet at least weekly. We've also worked with Third Space and Evelyn Barnett and Mordecai Cargill, because, to be honest with you, they have rewritten the book about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city of Cleveland. So we have a great working group that's working on that. And one of the things that I've made it clear to them is that I don't want it to just be about the city of Cleveland government government operations. There's a lot of third-party organizations that get a lot of money from the government that serve our citizens, and everybody needs to be on the same page. So we're formulating that document. We meet regularly, but once again, if you hear the committee structure that I just set aside, the first big step we made is putting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the finance committee, which I would chair, which makes sure that every piece of legislation that comes through the city of Cleveland is looked at through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So those are steps we've made already, even though they're small incremental steps, but those are things we've made already. But I want us to be tangible. I don't want this to be an academic exercise and a philosophical urban anthropology exercise. I want this to be something that people can taste, touch, and feel the change that we're trying to do. Can you imagine if we can increase our educational attainment by 1 or 2%? Some statistics say that we would increase Cleveland's GDP, gross domestic product, by approximately 350 million if we could just increase by 1% our educational attainment process. Those are things that people want to see, touch, and feel, not just go say how we've made academic exercises out of racism and those other kind of things. And I've really asked the committee to be very, very, very cautious of that because I don't just want to roll out another blue ribbon report that sits on the shelf and collects dust behind me for the next 20 years.
So earlier you mentioned the cradle to workforce for our city's young people. As you look ahead, what might that workforce look like? And how might the City Council Education Committee engage with CMSD's new Planning and Career Exploration Initiative to help bring that workforce to life?
Well, that's the reason why we put it in place, so that we can kind of coordinate that. I would tell you that right now, and I don't want to change the question, but I've learned to make sure I say what I'm feeling at the time, is that the systems do not communicate well with each other. If you looked at a Blaine Griffin when he came up through a small city of Youngstown, Ohio, you had multiple systems that I interacted with, whether it was the rec center, the Boys and Girls Club, the schools, the church, if it was social services, because we were not a wealthy family, so we were in need of social services when we were younger. All of the different systems that interact with each other. And I dare to say, in some of these cases, some of these kids are also dealing with law enforcement, the juvenile court, and all of these other things. And these systems do not talk to each other. That's just the bad side, the negative side. But the systems don't talk to each other on the positive side either. We should be having clear handoffs that we're doing from people that are going from preschool, actually starting even before then, for pregnancy, because I told you we're losing too many babies, to making sure that they live in safe environments, to make sure that they live in environments for a long time and don't have to be as transient, to make sure that they have high quality preschool education, to make sure that they're prepared to go to a high quality school, to make sure that after they get out of high school, or even while they are in high school, have contracts with businesses to make sure that we get them certifications. So when they move into the workforce, they actually get good paying jobs and are able to take care of their families and live a prosperous life in Cleveland. So we want to align these things. We don't want to try to recreate any systems. What we want to do is use our job and our bully pulpit as Cleveland City Council to align the stars. That's why I said this is our North Star moment.
All right, we have one more question for you. So you mentioned looking at making some changes to structure of council. Can you share some insights into what some of those transformation changes are going to look like? And how might it go for you to help develop a cohesive council that can really work with this sense of urgency to make the changes you want to see?
Well, first and foremost, I mentioned earlier about the committee structure, which is huge. Those committee structures haven't been changed for a long time. And when you tell people that you actually have to have a community benefits plan, or you don't need to come before us as a finance committee, then that's sending a clear message that we're serious about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that that's the first big step that we made as council. I would tell you also that it's critical for us to really make sure that we gel together as a council. council, we lost a lot of institutional knowledge. On the administration side, people forget that we've lost a mayor that was the longest serving mayor in the city of Cleveland for 16 years. And those directors that were with him had a lot of institutional knowledge, had a lot of trial and error and other things. And then we have a young council. I would tell you that I'm 5th in seniority, and I only have been here for 6 years. That is almost unheard of in any legislative body. That means that literally 2/3 of council are new or newer. And that means that we have to really bond. That's the reason why we spent this entire week over in public auditorium, really spending time with each other, getting to know each other's priorities, getting to know what's important to each other, and then also bringing in other subject matter experts in order to really try to help us understand how we need to go about our decision-making process. Former person Lee Fisher, former Lieutenant Governor Lee Fisher, did a great job, fantastic job of really helping us understand our role and how we could stand out as a council. So that's what I'm spending this week doing, is bonding with our council. And then next week, we're going to start to identify our priorities and develop our civicism document.
Well, Council President Griffin, we are so thankful for your time today and for your leadership in our community. And we are so excited for this coming year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and please be patient with us. We really do want to take care of people. We're always open to have any ideas. We're not perfect, but I will tell you that we won't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This council is going to be very efficient, very effective, and we look forward to taking on some of the complex and vexing issues of our times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council President Griffin. It's both exhausting and energizing to listen to you. So we really look forward to the days, weeks, and months ahead. And you have a whole host of people here supporting you in any way possible.